Good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. My name is Anthony Kinslow II, and I wanted to talk with you a little bit today about how to save us, or more accurately, how to save the US with safer, healthier, and high-performing homes. Thank you to Maryland Climate Tech 2026 for hosting me and hosting this conference. So to get started, first a little bit about myself. I'm a proud graduate of North Carolina A&T, Aggie Pride, for all those out there, HBCU proud. I then went on to do my master's and PhD at Stanford University, where I currently teach. I've been teaching there for now 6 years, two classes, Quest for an Inclusive Clean Energy Economy and Racial Equity in Energy. And before I started teaching, I started a company called Gemini Energy Solutions. And the theory of that company was very simple. The more people who can impact our clean energy transition, the faster our clean energy transition will be realized. And the idea with that was, how can we use technology to take folks without technical expertise, but use technology to solve the technical side so that people can then have impact in the space in a technical and practical way. Gemini has been operating since 2017. And some of our clients include San Francisco International Airport, the city of Memphis, uh, Morehouse College, and others, really uh, large organizations, but also small businesses. And then most recently, I partnered with this organization known as Green the Church, founded by a nonprofit founded by Black pastors to green Black churches, to form Green the Church Renewable Energy Development. In that we are creating microgrids with EV charging stations. So we call them revenue generating microgrids in partnership with Black churches across the country so that we can start building revenue in this clean energy transition to further support the work that I'm going to be presenting today, in fact, around safer, healthier, and high performing homes. So as we talk through these practical solutions that I'll be presenting, there's a few key facts that I think is important. First is that 90% of our lives are spent inside, whether in our homes or in commercial buildings. And that also means that most of the airborne pollutants that impact us, that cause cancer, asthma, and other illnesses, are coming from either inside the house or coming from outside and into the house. Second, 70% of our building energy usage is controllable. Oftentimes we think about our energy bill as kind of a standard cost in our household. But the reality is, through energy efficiency, electrification, weatherization, we can reduce our energy usage pretty substantially. And what most people don't realize is, you take the same house and you put two different people in it, the energy usage could be different by could be as much as twice as much, depending on how the behavior of those individuals act within that house. And then lastly, in terms of these three driving facts of this presentation, there are 100 million homes that need to be improved. 100 million homes that need to be improved. There's over 120 million homes, single family homes in the US today. 100 million of them need to be measurably improved. And as I talk throughout this time with practical solutions, I'm going to be presenting on three forms of benefits. The first being that is economic. That could mean jobs, money back into your pocket, and even business opportunities. The next is health, quality of life. Oftentimes, being able to be asthma impacts your quality of life, right? Avoidance of illnesses, and living longer. What people don't realize is a lot of the impacts of pollution actually reduce life expectancy. People don't apply that into their thinking. If they're feeling okay now, that doesn't mean that this doesn't have a growing effect on your life. It's similar to stress, and a lot of folks are really a lot of research is now understanding the impacts of stress and pollutants, air pollutants, in reducing the length that we live. And then lastly, justice. How can these solutions address the injustices we see today across the board? Now, a little context of where we are in America right now. First and foremost, environmental racism is nothing new, but race is the most significant predictor of a person living near contaminated air, water, or soil. Race, not income, is the most significant predictor. So that means that a middle to upper income African American family is more likely to live next to a polluted area than a poor white family. And there's a lot, and a lot of people talk about this of, oh, well, people aren't aware of that. There's a lot of people that are aware of this. There are a lot of people trying to do stuff. And that's why this number on the bottom of the screen, 95% of claims against polluters are denied by the EPA. This was before this current administration, which is working to dismantle the EPAs and all its protections. So this is over the last 20, 30 years, 95% of polluters, claims against polluters have been denied by the EPA. That's where we are today. Moreover, there is a clear connection between social justice, environmental justice, and energy justice. You look at these two maps here. On one end, you have the black African American population. The darker the blue, the higher density that population. And on the other side, you see an upward mobility track. The darker the red, the lower your upward mobility is. That means that less likely you are to be able to improve your financial standings over your family, over what your parents were. We go on to air quality in America. Once again,
Mm.
you see how the darker the red area is, the worse the pollution is. You start to see the trends here, right? Lastly, we have, energy burden. Energy burden is a measurement of how much of your income is going to pay your energy bills. And once again, a consistent theme going on throughout here of, and you also see the Appalachia communities impacted by the coal industry also shown up here with energy burden. But this idea of social justice, environmental justice, energy justice are all intertwined. And the last thing that's very important when we talk about practical solutions is understanding how we got here. And one of the major factors of that were governmental policies, right? What you're seeing right here is an image of redlining of Baltimore City. Now you can pretty easily Google redlining for any city that you're interested in. You'll see a similar map to this, whether it's Oakland in California, uh, Nashville, Tennessee, et cetera, et cetera. This was a federal policy that was across the country of ensuring that people, uh, black black communities were seen as high risk areas for investment. And what drove that to be is the quality of homes and the ability for upgrading those homes and maintaining those homes, infrastructure and the homes themselves were diminished because you had to do it. You couldn't get a loan for that work. But there's other things that happen with policies, such as where industry permitting, where industries and waste facilities were allowed to be placed, right? Or highways, the policy of building highways through, around, and near black neighborhoods created exponentially more pollution in those neighborhoods that we still see today. And more than just pollution, lower housing value and other economic impacts that, so we talk about justice, economics, and health. So what I want to talk mostly about is how we can improve, create healthier, safer, high performing homes. And first and foremost, that is electrification or decarbonization. To be clear, decarbonization is the discussion of abolition.
Mm.
We have a long history of abolition movement, a long history of abolition movement in this country uh, within our communities, and fossil fuels is no different. What makes it different is that we have a high degree of people employed in the fossil fuel industry within Black America. In fact, there is a higher percentage of African Americans employed in the fossil fuel industry than in the clean industry. One of the things that causes this tension in a lot of communities of petrochemical communities, et cetera, where you know that the chemicals, the pollution of these industries are poisoning and killing you, but they are also employing you. And so when we talk about electrification, decarbonization, we have to recognize the dynamic at play of that is not just a simple, oh, let's just get rid of gas, but uh, how do we do that? And how do we do that from a just way that ensures further further uh, economic benefits within the community? Now, when you see this next image, you may have a feeling, right? This doesn't look right. The idea, we all understand the impacts of smoking in a car, right? And we've seen not only a move from a political standpoint, but a social standpoint of what smoking in public places, smoking around kids. The feeling you see when you see this image is that is different than it was in 1980 or 1970, right? We have a fundamentally different feeling about that. What we now know, and that most people aren't aware of, but what research has shown very clearly, is that having gas in your house is equivalent to having a smoker in your house in terms of the chemicals, in terms of the negative impact on health. So we see this, we know better, and we do better. Now, what is our response going to be for gas in our homes? I'm talking about the stove that you're cooking on. I'm talking about the heat that your heater that's producing heat in your house, or the gas that's heating your water. Right? And so when you look at these technology options, the ones highlighted in red are really the key core technologies for electrification. Induction stovetops actually have greater control than gas stovetops. It's not the coils from the 90s that we all know and don't love, right? These induction stovetops use magnets to heat the pot directly, saving a lot of energy, but also improving the control and the speed in which you can boil water or cook in general. And you don't have to have a full induction stovetop, which are quite expensive. You can get a tabletop one with two burners for uh, relatively low prices nowadays. Heat pumps and hot water heaters have better comfort and better control. Instead of you having this blast of hot air for 10 minutes to heat up your house, you have a lower temperature, steady heating throughout the day, so that you reduce your hot and cold spots in your home. The heat pump water heater, the ability to control that and drastically increase efficiency. Heat pump water heaters are 4 to 5 times more efficient than gas water heaters. 4 to 5 times more efficient. Now, after there's technology, there's also, we talk about the control, right? One of the things that often is overlooked is control. So this is an image I took while at a renewable energy conference called RE Plus in Vegas. It is a large screen example of what would be on your phone if you had the SPAN board. It's a smart electrical panel, and SPAN is probably the most known of these smart electric panels, but they're not the only ones. And now on your phone, you can choose, hey, what is on in my house by the circuit level. So you know when the lights go off and you got to go to your panel and you got to switch on that circuit. Now every single one of those circuits are connected to different devices in your home, and you can control that from your phone now. Building energy management. Building management is something that drastically increases your ability to control. We've already been seeing this with the ability to control your heating and cooling on your phone with new thermostats. Now imagine that for all throughout your house. And then you take into account the ability to add solar and battery storage to your house. Now you can decide, hey, my battery has this much time left. What do I want it to power in my home? What do I want to turn off during an outage? These are the benefits that you can have with building energy management. Going back to this technology view, because every single one of these technologies or solutions also are job opportunities. We Today we have I believe about 2 million jobs across the country related to electricians, plumbers, laborers, folks doing insulation and air duct sealing. All of this needs to be inserted into your home, and they count to about 2 million jobs, with another, uh, I believe, another million or more related to rooftop solar and community solar as well. Right? What if we could say, what if we said, hey, we need more of this? What would that do for jobs? But before we get to that, how do we pay for that? Right? How do you pay for including all this in your home, which can easily go over 25, $35,000, right? Even without even counting about electric vehicle, right? This is what I've talked about in last year also, in a lot more detail, but I do want to always bring this up because I believe this financial solution, which is being used across the country from St. Louis, California, uh, Virginia to Kentucky and North Carolina, right? This solution of inclusive utility investment. The idea being that the utility will pay for these upgrades, will pay for the installation of all of these different equipments and recover their costs with a tariff on the bill that is at least no more than 80% the energy savings that you're seeing. So you're getting new equipment, you're seeing about a 20% energy savings, and it is not a loan. If you move from that house, the tariff stays on that bill, not with you. So this means that renters and homeowners alike can take advantage of this to start improving their household and start using this solution. And so I bring this up and I keep bringing this up because I think this is an essential component to realizing safer, healthier, and high performance homes at scale. Lastly, one of the impacts to doing this at scale of realizing these healthy is jobs. Over the last decade, we've seen solar, on average, gain 200,000 jobs a year. And we all know how big solar has exploded. We've all seen it, although not exploded in the same way in every place. Data shows that it is actually low-income white household is more likely to have uh, solar panels than affluent black households, to give you some context. And the research has shown and the data has shown is that that's not because black households don't want solar or want solar less. It's actually more connected to marketing, more connected to industries where they target their marketing for, who they sell to, etc. But uh, the idea of jobs, who is being hired for those jobs? What kind of job training are we going to be expecting from that? There's an organization called the Blue Green Alliance who's doing work around job training and in labor and unions. And of course, even within the union space, we've seen historically a lot of racial issues around including black individuals into the union. But this new wave of recognition of the importance of inclusion, this recognition of the opportunity around the clean energy space also means that there is an opportunity for a more just and more economical workforce training process, right? That is a job opportunity. Imagine if you could work in a space where the utility is paying for the upgrades and all you need to do is provide quality upgrades. All right, no longer you could start your own business. Maybe you were an electrician for someone else and you could start your own business in that space. What we've seen is that in areas with inclusive utility investment solutions, the 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 number of people signing up is goes up by order of magnitude. And we already are at our limits with our current labor force. We need to increase our current labor force, even if we weren't doing a major investment in clean energy. But we are, which means that we have a chance to more than double the number of jobs in this industry in the next 5 years. And the beautiful thing about that is this isn't a federal decision. This is a state and utility level decision. And so with that, I'll close out with saying that focusing on healthier, safer, and high performance homes will create better health within our communities. It will create job opportunities and jobs in our communities, and we'll start to address the disparities, economic disparities, health disparities, and in our communities. And so with that, I want to thank you for your time, and I'll also state that we do energy audits, decarbonization master planning, and software as a service for those who are interested in learning more about Gemini Energy Solutions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Dr. Kinslow, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Do you have a few minutes for some questions?
Absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. Well, first of all, this is your third year presenting at Climate Tech Plus, and so I can't thank you enough for your support and all that you're doing in the industry. And it's good to know that you are Baltimore born and bred. And talk a little bit about, I always like to level set the conversation with how the Park School and the Baltimore community kind of nurtured this fire in your heart for the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So my mom went to Morgan State University,
Go Bears.
and so I grew up going to homecoming. I was born in Nashville, but I moved to Baltimore. We moved back up to Baltimore when I was 3,
Mhm.
and grew up going to Morgan State homecoming, and so I was very much in depth to kind of like that black excellence, right? This idea of there are black folks that are engineers, there are black folks who are professors. I had folks in higher academia in my life, my aunt, my cousin, my aunt and uncle, and so you you pair that with Baltimore, which in the Park School in particular, which really their whole thing was, question or ask questions, which got me in trouble a few times at home. But it was it was a beautiful kind of combination of being able to see Black excellence and also being able to start to look at the spaces and places that we operate in and start to question them.
Mhm.
And it was junior year where at the Park School they showed a documentary called "An Inconvenient Truth"
Mhm.
done by Al Gore, and it was at that point that I said, "Oh, I guess I know what I'm going to do when I grow up. I'm going to save the world." And it was that put me on the pathway, and I didn't want to go to Morgan because my mom knew too many people there, but I ended up at North Carolina A&T, which was the best academics decision of my life. So,
That's what's up. That's what's up. It's so interesting. I came to Howard University from Syracuse, New York, for homecoming, 11th grade. And because I had a couple of friends that I went to high school with that went to Howard and immediately got hooked on the DMV and was like, I am going to marry a Howard woman. And 28 years later, we're still together. So I kept to my promise.
love that. Beautiful.
Hate you. So we were talking in the green room a little earlier before we hit the record button, just in regards to, kind of how our climate tech event has evolved over the last couple of years. But I kind of want to put that question back to you because, when we first started having these conversations, there was a different administration, a different methodology. So how has your business and kind of thought process evolved with the work that you're doing over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think first it's important to give folks like context of the impact this administration has already had in just the last year, right? In 2025, uh, $38 billion were taken away from clean energy. I think something like 35,000 jobs were lost that were supposed to be um, 20, and I think it was net 35,000. So really like 50,000 jobs were lost in the clean energy space because of this administration. So there, that's huge, and that's going to possibly continue. Uh, we, and at the time I was very frustrated. We never won any of the big money grants that was being put out, the tens of billions of dollars that was being put out into the clean energy space over the Biden administration, and is now a blessing in disguise considering where we are at today because we had to build a business model that
Mhm,
worked without that money, without that
mhm,
grant money.
mhm, mhm.
And so we've actually grown from doing one project to seven projects. And I credit organizations like the Kresge Foundation for their support in that. We have gone from 3 employees to 7 employees. All right, so we despite this environment are growing, and we see this as a space and place that we can still grow and thrive in despite the federal uh, disruptions and all that comes with
That's folks, that is called making a way out of no way.
it.
So you talked about in some of your early slides. I've got more questions than we have time, but I'm going to get to as many as I can. You talked in your earlier slides about how, and I always talk about how we spend 90% of our lifetimes indoors, and indoor air quality is up to 100 times worse than outdoor air quality. Have you calculated your indoor age yet?
I have not.
Okay, so multiply your age by point 0.9 and that'll give you your indoor age. I'll throw mine out there just for giggles. Mine is 50.4. And that basically means that 50.4 years of my life, of my 56 years on this planet, I've spent indoors on a plane, train, in a hotel, in a conference room, indoors. We're spending more time indoors than most whale species spend underwater, which it's going to take a few people a few minutes to kind of, huh? What?
Yeah, because whales got to come up for air, y'all.
Exactly, exactly. And unfortunately, we don't study whales when they're above the water. We study them underwater. But you also mentioned an interesting thing about how health and wellness, poor indoor air quality can reduce or add 6 to 8 years to your life, depending on, whether you're in a building, in a home that's actually making you healthier, or you're in a building or a home that has, sick building syndrome issues, which is a newer phenomenon, which is an unintended consequence of the energy crisis back in the 1970s, where, we wanted to conserve energy and focus on energy conservation, and now it's about energy savings. And I'm always the one that's like, well, what about the health and wellness of the building
Hmm.
occupant? Let's stop value engineering public health out of
Hmm.
these conversations, because people don't live in homes to save energy; they live in homes for health and safety.
Yeah.
What can you expand on that?
Yeah, so first off, my home life is 32 years old. Um, I
Your
also
indoor age. Your indoor
Yeah, my
age is
indoor age.
33.
Thank you, thank
Okay,
you.
okay,
Indoor age. I
okay.
gotta get the right nomenclature there. My indoor age is 32. And there's there's interesting aspects of in the HVAC industry, right? They always oversize the unit, right? So you have most people in their homes have a heater that's much bigger than they need, and so it blasts hot air uh, for about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, and then goes off. Well, this kind of cycle actually produces and generates situations of mold in the walls.
I have to stop you there. I think our industry has just considered that being a box in the ceiling, and not a life-saving system of
Yeah,
what it really should be. You know what I
yes.
mean? I'm sorry. I just
No, you're absolutely right. Their main concern is not to get callbacks. It is not to build and install to what is necessary for that house. And something really disturbing as we start transitioning to heat pumps, something like 90% of installations have something wrong with them for heat pumps. So it's not just about training new people into the space, it's reskilling and retooling people who are already in the space on how to do it correctly when we're talking about electrifying these buildings. And it's a really problematic kind of narrative that we have is like you want people to transition, but then there's not a lot of people with the expertise to do it right. And so you get a heat pump and then you got complaints, you got issues, and all these other things that are causing you troubles. And that hurts because every single person who goes through this should be an ambassador to why you should do this. And while health is prime, when you're dealing with a really cold day and you can't get heat the way you need to, that's part of your health too.
Yeah.
And you're going to be talking about that. Why'd I get this heat pump? If we don't, right? If we don't do things correctly, we don't train folks correctly. All these things are intertwined.
Absolutely. Interestingly enough, I've heard that if the coils in the heat pumps aren't treated a certain way, they start to rust and emit volatile organic compounds
Hmm.
into the air, which I found fascinating. I was at an event down in Silver Spring, and they had a couple of HVAC companies, and I saw VOCs on one of their posters, and I'm an indoor air quality geek, and I was like, I didn't really make the connection between that and a heat pump, but then he started explaining that this phenomenon. Are you seeing that in your space at all, or?
Um, I'm aware of that. There's also, if they don't do the pressure right, and it
Mm,
can be releasing gas
mm,
that are high, that
mm.
are what we call
Yep.
high intensity kind of greenhouse gas emissions, right? So like you get a heat pump and they actually the release of that gas is worse than if you just kept your gas gas heater for a year or two, right? So there's all types of kind of things that the industry is aware of. Some of them are, right? But quite frankly, we as a society just assume that the folks who are coming to our house and installing things know what they're doing and know the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's quite frankly an incorrect assumption. And then other thing I'll add is what we don't talk about is in schools and
Mm,
how indoor air quality impacts our kids
mm,
and and their ability to learn. Some of the students that I work with did a study, and it showed that the different levels of air quality in schools, and how that impacts the ability to pay attention. Right? If your carbon dioxide is high in that area because you're not getting new fresh air in there, you get sleepy, you get tired, it's harder to pay attention.
on
Uh,
the same day that you got to take your SATs and
right, all
yeah.
these things,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm,
so, how does that impact it? The discourse of conversations about food, right? We all
mhm,
know that it's really hard to study when you're hungry.
mm.
It's also really hard to study when you don't have clean air.
Right. 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 No, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. We have our indoor air core student internship program where we actually provide our student interns with indoor air quality monitor. Well, their air quality monitors use indoor air or outdoors, but they drop them in their backpacks. And not only are they required to, fill in their dashboard on a daily basis, tracking, air quality in the morning when they wake up, at school, particulate matters, volatile organic compounds, temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide, um, the numbers at home, at school, and then at home again in the evening while they're cooking. They do this 5 days a week for like 8 months. On top of the fact that they're learning about, radon, what is radon, they even facilitate a radon detection loan program where they
Mm,
monitor radon in their own home for 30 days, learn about what radon is, how to mitigate, and then they loan that monitor to a teacher or neighbor and have to explain to them what radon is and how it works and how to set it up and they got to monitor that as well. And we're finding that students are actually, because of this, what they started out not even knowing what radon was. And some of them are finding it in their homes.
hmm
But now they know how to, have a conversation with their parents about this is how you mitigate it. Let's get a company in here and get a second opinion. But interesting enough, you talked about the workforce that's connected to kind of the status quo, which is an interesting perspective. I hadn't heard it put quite that way. There is a place in New Orleans. It's called Cancer Alley, and simply what they did was transition from sugarcane plantations up and down the Mississippi with an average life expectancy of 7 years during the antebellum years, and then that has now transitioned to processing plants and most of the materials that we have in our homes are processed in that area. Even the Venezuelan oil will probably process there as well. Um, but Baltimore has its own cancer alley in the form of Curtis Bay, right? Shouts out to Dr. Melanie Thomas and South Baltimore. Southwest Baltimore community and the work that they're doing there. But I didn't make that connection between the actual workforce and the jobs that are connected there. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, no, we uh, in the environmental space, we often get hyper focused on the negatives of the industries, which are multitude, right? Without realizing that to bring forth change in a real meaningful way, you have to acknowledge the benefits of it too, because those benefits are do impact people's lives.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you can't tell someone who is at that company where they're going to get their next job
Right.
and if that and how that job's going to be even better for them and their family, then how do you expect them to advocate with you for the abolition of that of that job?
Good point. It's a good point. So, as we close out, you were talking about your utility investment solutions. I didn't hear you mention Pepco. I didn't hear you mention BGE, Delmarva, Constellation. What are some of the barriers from some of our local utilities here in Maryland from embracing this as a solution, or are they?
I think their only barrier is their willingness to do so.
Mm.
I've been a part of several financial analyses for utilities who are looking to do this, and some and per home, the utility could make ten to $15,000 over the life of this per
Wow.
home. So this isn't a solution that is only good for the people; it's also good business.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I do call for all of them to, take a real hard look at this, do a financial analysis. I can do that for them if they like. That's part of our services.
Shout out.
Um, but and then I also call, uh, we have an amazing governor in Maryland and someone who I believe really cares, and I think that this administration's looking at this government Maryland governor administration looking at how can we find uh, tandem of health and energy efficiency, right? How can these things go together? Jobs, health, and energy efficiency, jobs, health, and electrification. How can we, bring these together in a real way? I think could show powerful results.
Absolutely. And one of the so we do, as you mentioned, we do have the federal government kind of doing what they're doing, but we're very fortunate in the sense that we live here in Maryland. We do have an aggressive administration here. And we also have the most aggressive climate law in the country called the Maryland Climate Solutions Now Act. So every building that you see in Dr. Kinslow's background needs to be net zero by 2040. And the majority of those building owners and the majority of people occupying those buildings don't even know that that law exists.
Yep.
So I guess my final question is kind of how are you, not everybody, is fortunate enough to go to the park school, right?
Mhm.
How are you engaging the younger workforce, that looks like us, that this just isn't for white folks, right? Black people are kind of the first hit and the last served or last saved in this process. How are you doing outreach to the youth, not only for workforce, but for entrepreneurship as well?
Yeah, so yeah, our communities are hit first, worst, and longest. If something happens, we're the last to receive funding to rebuild.
Mhm.
Uh, the Some of the ways that I'm doing work is talks at with high schoolers at HBCUs like Morgan State. I spoke to Morgan State. Uh, our technology, we give access to students who are interested in trying to use it to do energy audits of buildings. Uh, those are kind of the my personal ways of impact.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
my business and how we are generating, working to build microgrids, and
Mhm. Mhm.
we see Maryland as a great space for doing that.
Mhm.
We'll start generating revenue within the communities to start accelerating this.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of ways to have impact, but I think fundamentally people underestimate how much impact they can have
Mhm.
just by having conversations, just by starting. But there are real structural barriers to doing so. There are real financial barriers to getting a heat pump in your house.
Mhm. Mhm.
Despite the incentives and rebates that exist, it's
Mhm.
still, do you have $10,000 in cash, right?
Yeah.
So and then, oh, I will say that the uh, Public Utilities Commission, Maryland Public Utilities Commission, can force uh, the utilities to do inclusive utility investment.
Oh, okay.
So there is it doesn't have to just be the utilities decision. Maryland Public Utilities Commission, y'all can get on this too.
Takes a village, man. Well, hey, man. Again, I appreciate you for showing up for your third year doing this, and we are excited to invite you back again next year. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want people to know about you and your work?
No, just that I love what y'all are doing. I love that the focus is on healthy homes because that's where it starts.
Mhm.
And please, I encourage anybody to reach out in any way that they want to see how I can support them so that they can support others.
Absolutely. And your contact information is going to reappear on the screen magically,
Beautiful.
especially what you just said, especially knowing what your indoor age is now, right? Dr. Kinslow, this has been great, man. I appreciate you and keep up the great work.
Appreciate it. Take
All
care.
right. Have a good one.